Hello everyone! Today we are here to talk about Nusfjord. This was a game that you didn't get me for Christmas.
Whatever. It's by the same designer for Agricola and Le Havre. Some of these games that we really enjoyed, and so we were excited to include this in our collection. But before we get started, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can join our journey as we discover a bunch of really amazing games. And maybe not some amazing games. So, Randy, tell us more about this particular game.
Well, so Nusfjord was released in 2017. It has a Board Game Geek rating of 7.7 and a Board Game Geek rank of 329.
Holy moly, that's good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. 1 to 5 players, 20 to 100 minutes in length, and age is 12 and up, and that's probably accurate because...
That is probably accurate.
Most of all of UA Rosenberg's games are on the heavier side as far as just learning the game because there's so many components and things to do in it. The art is by Patrick Soder, published by Lookout Games, as most of UA Rosenberg's games are. This is a worker placement game. They could classify it as economic. There is a little money in it. It's mostly resource management.
Yeah, but you're building a shipping village and you're trying to get the most victory points, aka but your gold's worth 1 victory point, so it's a little bit of money. It's a bit of a stretch.
Your currency is money, fish, and wood. So those 3 things combined allow you to buy stuff. So
right, but gold is a victory point at the end of the game.
Yes.
So if you look at it from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's talk about quality of components. So we do get wooden-shaped wood pieces, wooden-shaped fish-shaped wood pieces for the fish. And the money, though, was cardboard chits.
Yeah, we didn't use it.
We ended up using the
money poker chips we have.
Yeah, that Randy always uses if he can manage it. Card quality, no linen finish. It's okay. It's not great.
Decent. It's definitely slick finish.
And then you've got standard tiles. You got some player boards. Nothing too fancy on this. I am glad to see that they did the shaped resources. So, but other than that, that's really the only thing above average here. So I'm good with a 6 for this. What about you?
Yeah, I don't see anything that's outstanding. I mean, anytime you get one of the UA Rosenberg games, you always get a lot of bits, and there's no.
There was plenty of fish to go around.
Yeah, there's plenty of cards in the game, lots of cardboard. This one's actually I was surprised because I was expecting it to be a lot more reading and more punching and setup.
Mm-hmm.
This one was lighter than a lot of his games. It's not as heavy as like Hallertau that we recently played. It's not, nearly as heavy as, it doesn't have nearly as many number of bits as like Le Havre even. And Le Havre is a fairly light one compared to some of his games.
Yeah, so I thought this one was a little bit more straightforward. So now let's talk about theme. So like I mentioned before, you are creating a fishing village and you're trying to become the best fishing village. So everything is in that theme. You have a fish market, shipping office, dairy's kind of random, but it just gives you a gold if your reserve's empty. A fisher's house, shipping lane. So you kind of get this feel for the shipping village. You can create boats, which increases your fish every round. You're basically your production. And then like you have elders that you have to feed, and they have special abilities, obviously, because they have more understanding. And so there's a lot of, I think, it was well thought out as a theme. It felt like a fishing village. Like, I mean, it was there. There was a lot of components, a lot of connectability there.
I would say I built a fishing village. You built a fishing hut. Because you only built like 3 buildings the entire game, yet you won.
That's because I focused on my boats. Listen. I was like, hey, I'm going to make me some money. That's what I was about. Mm-hmm. You were just like, oh, I'm going to make a prosperous fishing village. And I was here like, I'm going to make me some money. So that's how that worked.
Everybody gets to live in trees.
Hey, at the end of the day, they'll be able to buy them houses later. I ended up with the game with quite a bit of actual like gold. And that's what made me, I think, win. All right, so there's plenty going on. Score-wise, I think they did a good job. I think it definitely feels like a fishing village kind of game.
Yeah.
I'm giving it an 8.
I don't think I'm quite an 8. I mean, as far as the art, it's very basic. I mean, all of the games in his sets are generally just very generic as far as the look of the piece, the boards, the look of everything. There's nothing spectacular about any of the art. I would say, yes, you feel like it's a village, but it could be any kind of village. I mean, it's thematically because there's fish, and the building names. I got it, but I mean,
no, I definitely. I mean, but the thing is, for theme for me, typically I do a lot on feel for a game, right? Mm-hmm. Do I feel like I'm entrenched in a fishing village? And I do think I was like. It was like, all right, I've got this fish. What am I going to do with it? I have very few workers, so do I go? I don't know. For me, it felt very, like a fishing village.
Yeah. I'm more of a 7 on it. I don't think it's quite an 8 for me.
No, and I get that. And if you counter the artwork, I can kind of see where you're coming from there. But like I said, for me, the feeling was there, and that's why I give my points. All right, so now let's move on to Rulebook. You were surprised that the Rulebook was only 16 pages.
I was, because most of the times when you open these Lookout games, the Rulebook is intimidating. When I saw the 16, it was not. I was like, oh, this is a relief.
But to be fair, it's very small print.
It's small print, but it's not horribly small. The appendix is smaller. So,
I couldn't manage that.
So there's 2 books. One is the Rulebook, and it's only 16 pages, as we mentioned. And then the appendix, and it's 12. And this basically gives card by card a description of what everything is in, what it does. The Rulebook doesn't really have a cover. So the first page does basically just go through and tell you like what the game does. It's just kind of a really high level. And then you got several pages of the components, actually 2. And then
the picture quality is really good in there.
Yeah, the pictures aren't bad. It wasn't hard to understand until you got into the distribution of the fish, which is laid out on the board. Once you get it, it's easy. Once you know it, the board will remind you. But it took me several read-throughs to understand that. It just didn't make sense. It didn't click the first few times. It's broken into the different phases. There's only 3 phases in each round. And then each action space, what each action space does. It's laid out well. There is a lot of redundancy where it tells you in like the red print, if you're playing a 2-player game, there's only one person can go to this space. But it's already on the board telling you that, and they told you that it says it on the board, but they reiterated it after every action.
There's some people that need that help.
I just think they could have saved some space and not done that. It could have probably been 12 pages in length because literally every action says the same thing over and over again.
But overall, what would you give it a score-wise?
I mean, it's effective. We didn't have any confusion playing the game, and this could be a confusing game. The only confusion we had was just getting that understanding of how the fish flow worked at the beginning.
And the fact that your shares generate fish over on my side of the board, which was nice.
I'm probably going to give it an 8 because, I mean, given the fact that this is a Rosenberg game and it didn't come with a 30, 40-page book, I'm, happy.
Yeah. All right. So now let's talk about gameplay. So the gameplay, there is sort of a cheat sheet up here in the corner.
Yeah, it just explains the fishing phase on what you do.
Yeah. So basically the fishing phase starts. Basically you look at your ships down below and you see what number is shown.
Yeah, the highest number, or the lowest number that is pictured.
Right, that is actually shown on the board.
Because your boats cover them up.
Yeah, so in my case, it was 12 at the end of the game, because I'm super cool like that. So I'm going to take 12 fish from the supply. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Math is hard. Okay, all right, and then I'm going to go, I got to feed my elders first. So I have 3 elders here. So I'm going to feed them 1. And then I have 3 shares, and then 2 of his shares that he'll eventually pay me for. So I have 3 down here. Okay. The rest I'm going to put in my reserve. However, my reserve is already full because it has a max of 8 holdings. So the rest of them go back into the pool there. I didn't reserve the last game, but that's okay. All right. Then you would have paid me 2.
I would have paid you 2.
Because that's my shares. All right, so then I'm taking all of these fish, and these are actually going into my personal supply, which is over here. Okay, that is the round. I will say
that is the fishing phase.
That's the fishing phase. However, I will say if you have shares over here in this pile, you will have to pay a fish on the board. If your shares are outside of your control, you will have to pay fishes for that, just like he paid fishes for me. Sometimes the shares are on the board. You have to pay for those as well. All right. And then you have 3 workers in the round. You play one, the next person plays theirs, so on and so forth. And you have a couple of actions. So your actions are all on the board, but then you also get additional actions as you get elders, and they have special abilities or special actions that you can do that you can also trigger with your worker. So one of them is gain a gold. That's pretty straightforward. I don't think either one of us use that throughout the game. Transfer resources. So everything in your reserve will go to your supply. We use that a couple of times. And then you have the serve fish. So the serve fish is interesting in the fact to trigger your elders, you have to have fish over here, okay, to be able to feed them, because they like to go to restaurants. I don't know. All right, so if I were examples to put to build a ship or build a building is this action over here, I would take one and I would place it over here, and then I would get to trigger the action. So fishes have to be there. All right, but if I were doing the serving fish phase, I would try to take my excess fish. So in this case, I only have 3, so I can only fill that 1 spot. Okay, so I have 3 fishes. I'm placing 1 there, and I'm putting the other 2 in the supply. Okay, and I get a gold for that. Okay, and you can do that as many times as you want if you go onto that action. There are some other actions that let you do it once or complete that action.
As long as you have the fish to do it in your personal supply.
Yes,
you cannot use your reserve. You cannot use fish from any other location.
I really wish you could have used it in the reserve. Let me tell you something. That would have saved me so much. All right. The next one is build a building. So depending on the resources that you have, there are buildings up here in the main draw pile. You also, in some part of the game, you'll get additional buildings that are personal to you that you could also choose to build. And the resources vary between wood, fish, and gold. Then the next one is to issue a share. So we kind of already talked about this. So at the start of the game, you actually only start with 2 shares. So no matter what in your personal supply, you're only going to get 2 fish. Now, you may want to expand that and increase it, but you're taking a risk. So you go to issue a share. I automatically get 2 gold, which is very, very useful because that's 2 victory points. And you're flipping over your tile. That removes the negative victory point. So it goes from negative to a positive victory point. But right now, anybody can own it. If someone else, so the next action is to buy all shares. So it's 1 gold per share, but you get, as the game goes on, you get a cost reduction for the overall shares you are purchasing.
Yeah, and that's only because it's a 2-player game, as it's 1 gold per share. If you had more players, the cost is different on the other side.
Okay. I thank you for your shares, but you got to be careful because if other people get your shares, you're giving them fish.
Yes.
So that's sad. But you did get gold for it. So, I mean, that's essentially 2 victory points and you lost a negative. So it nets you 3. But you maybe end up paying fish for a very, very long time, right?
Not to mention you gave your opponent a victory point when they claimed it.
You did. So positive 3 for you, positive 1 for them. So a net of 2 if you're playing 2-player. So you gotta have to, you make choices, right? So, but it is something to do. And like I noticed, so I've caught on it, like, oh, if I play it on round 4, I start round 5. So my last action was to get rid of 1, and then I was able to pick 1 to pick it back up.
But it takes one of your actions, which is a scarce resource. You only have 3 actions per round.
Right? It was, but so you just have to take in consideration what you need. Now, early on, I think you kind of won on that front because early on you did that, and there wasn't a lot to do yet because you didn't have resources. So. Yeah. But then you lost yours because you put 2 down, and I was like, well, thank you. I appreciate you. So you have to but then you have to pay more fish further on. But for me, I ended up discarding fishes towards the end, so it almost, I could have done that easily. All right, next up is deforest. So on the deforest action, I could choose to remove a forest tile, and I can get 5 gold for doing it.
Not 5 gold, 5 wood.
Sorry, he's right. I'm
5
wrong.
wood.
5 wood, because that makes sense, because it's a forest. All right, you're going to remove it, and you're going to gain 5 wood, and it does go in your personal supply. But I will say the max you can hold in your personal supply is 12.
12 wood.
12
you can have any number of fish, any number of gold. But 12 wood.
Which is very sad. I had to throw a bunch of wood away. Actually, only one wood, but still. And then the next one is thin out. So this is 1 wood per tile that I have. So some of the forest tiles have 2. So like this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I would get 6 wood. So like typically I went for that because I had so many forest tiles. I got more wood than I would deforesting.
Yeah. The thing is you can't build unless you have open spots on your map. But every time you open up one, that's -1 victory point at the end of the game.
-2.
Well, -1 per space.
Right.
So if you don't build on it at the end of the game, you're losing those victory points.
Right.
So it's a balance of how many buildings you expect you're going to build versus how much territory you want to open up.
Right. So, but you do have the opportunity to reforest. So I did this actually as my last action because that gained me, basically I didn't lose 2 victory points. So that's reforest. So I can place 2 forest tiles on a vertical. It has to be vertical.
No,
horizontal tiles, 2 of them, and then that gets covered. So bam, done. And that gives you a chance to be able to remove those for more wood, or like I said, you get more chances to do that. Then the next one is to build a ship. So there are 3 levels of ship that you could build, all worth varying degrees of victory points, varying degrees of resources. And then the last one is to take an elder. So if I take an elder, that he does have to have a fish to eat automatically, and it triggers automatically. Okay. Now, one thing, so it whatever special ability it triggers. But one thing I didn't mention, so once you have 3 fish on an elder, like I do over here, 2 of them go back to the supply, 1 goes to your personal supply, which that actually helped me quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Helped me a lot too.
Yeah, so even though you had to pay them at the round, like if you used them, you ended up getting stuff back. So it worked for me. There was a couple times where I was 1 fish short, and I was like, oh, I could go.
I'm not sure how that exactly worked. I'm assuming they ate too much fish at the banquet and then puked it back up. I don't know.
No. And here's what it is. It's called taxes.
Oh, okay.
So their payment was fish, and then they still had to pay the government, which was you. So that's how that works. All right. So that's all the actions. Like I said, there may be other actions that you have with the elders, and those can be triggered. That's the game until you get, depending on, I guess, how many players, 7 rounds. Mm-hmm. And yeah, then you calculate victory points. Gold is straight up victory points. You get victory points for buildings, you get victory points for your shares, you get victory points for your ships. Sadly, your elders don't get you any victory points.
Well, unless you get a building that lets you, because I had a building that gave me victory points for elders.
Correct. So that's what kind of looked like. I had a lot of fun with this. I actually really enjoyed it. I'm glad you brought this one out because the last couple, I don't know, they've just not been buildy enough for me. But this one's been buildy. So
this is definitely one of Rosenberg's most simplistic games that we've played. As far as the... But
there was still enough meat to it.
No, I agree. I was pleasantly surprised because I was like 16 pages. This may not be very meaty. But when we got playing, I was like, there's plenty of meat, but it's easy to learn. Compared to a lot of his other games, this one is way easier to pick up and learn. But it still has a lot of depth. As a matter of fact, and just like in Hallertau and a few of his recent games, there's 3 decks of cards in the game box, and you only play with 1 of the 3 decks, and you only play with half of the cards from the first, because there's A, B, and C in each deck, and of the A's and B's, you take half of the set out each round, so you're only playing with half of the cards, so there's a lot of variability in the buildings, and I appreciate that, because it means that you're going to have a lot more changing. Now, there isn't any variability within the actual elders, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of growth in this game as it comes. There are 2 expansions and a promo set that are available. The 2 expansions and the promo set and this game, for that matter, are all out of print, sadly. And I'm now trying to figure out how to find the expansion packs for this, because I saw it on the shelf so many times. And by the time I finally get the game, they're all out of print.
Yeah. So you did some research and found that they were going to try to reprint this year, but it kind of fell through.
Yeah.
But it has a rating of 300 and some odd, you said, on Board Game
Yes,
Geek.
it's very highly regarded.
I know. So, I mean, something should be said for that, and it's a shame they're not going to reprint it. Here's hoping that they still still might later.
You're paying a premium if you want them now. The only ones I saw were in Canada and Germany on the Board Game Geek market, and they were for a $15 original MSRP for the promo packs, or expansion packs, I should say. They were selling for 50 Canadian dollars, 70 euro, I'm presuming, in Germany. So they are pricey.
Yeah, so hey, if you want to sell yours
or not that price,
for not that price, you let us know. No, but I mean, I think there's a reason why it ranks so high in Board Game Geek, and I think that it's very true. I really enjoyed this game. What would you score it?
I like this one too. I was very pleasantly surprised by how much there was to it. And I like the fact that you and I had a completely different strategy. Obviously, your board is very forested. Mine is deforested. And, yet our scores were not wholly out of whack. I mean, it turns out your strategy panned out better than mine. But
I got the right combination.
Yeah.
To be fair.
I was trying a whole lot of things all over the place, and it didn't work.
Yeah, for me, it was like, oh, I got this card. Oh, look, I got this card. Well, I guess I know what I'm doing. That moment of, well, looks like I know, this is the route I'm going today.
So I'm pretty, I really enjoyed this, and I think it's more elegantly designed than Hallertau, which I liked a lot too. I'm probably going to give this one a 9, I think.
Ooh, you really liked it.
I did. I thought this was a well-designed game. It's very streamlined. It's easy to teach. I like games like that where we can get it to more people because it's more accessible. And yet it still has a lot of meat on it. And I wanted to play it again as soon as I finished. I was like, ooh, this is fun.
Oh, well, he did really like it. I'll probably give this an 8.5. Again, I really, really liked it. It was a really good game. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of thought. Now they need to make an app. Just because I could see we would be playing this a lot. Mm-hmm. We play Agricola way too much. But I could see us doing the same thing for this game. Yep. So this would end up being one of the main ones we use. All right. So, well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We had an absolute blast tonight. Hopefully you guys did too. And you'll come visit us again. Bye.